Nathan Terry is the author of Capturing the Dead, which was awarded the Stevens Prize by the National Federation of State Poetry Societies, and 2 chapbooks, Waxwings and Days of Dark Miracles. His poems have appeared in New South, Poet Lore, The MacGuffin, and numerous other literary magazines and anthologies. Daniel earned both the BFA and the MFA degree from UNCW, where he currently teaches in the English department. Prior to his time as a student and educator, he labored as a landscaper and horticulturist, a background that informs his latest gorgeous collection, Waxwings, from which he will read tonight. These poems, pride from the heart and predominantly confessional, are firmly anchored in the natural world where he ultimately finds, in equal part, solace and revelation. Please join me in welcoming our own beloved Daniel Nathan Terry.
Hi. Good evening. I sound better than I did a minute ago, but thank you so much for that. And I'm sorry, but when you said horticulturist, all I could think of was Dorothy Parker's "You can lead a horticulture, but you can't make her think." Give it a minute. All right. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. I am so honored that you came out on a Friday night for poetry and support Pomegranate and support the written word. And that is amazing in and of itself, and the world that we live in, that you do this tonight. I'm honored to be representative of poetry tonight. I hope I do it some justice. I'm going to start off by reading, I should qualify and first say that I had a couple of books before this one, and I thought I was writing from my own place of being. I thought I was writing from my own viewpoint, but I was finding my viewpoint in people who were not given a voice in the past. So my first collection, Capturing the Dead, is about the photographers of the American Civil War. I saw photographs of men lying dead on a battlefield and thought, how can we be in this war on terror? After these photographs were taken of men spread-eagled and dead on our home soil, how can we still be killing each other? And I kept trying to answer that question, so I wrote these poems. And I thought I went deep, and this was undergrad. And also, my first poetry class at UNCW was 308 with Levon Adams. I like to think that my parents, my father and mother, my father's a Baptist preacher. My mother's obviously a Baptist preacher's wife. I mean, she could be divorced, but she's not. But I like to think that Providence brought me to Levon, because I went into her class when Katrina was happening, and if I had to say I have a city that is my soul, because I hate cities, I really do. Cars and streets and smog, and I think someone actually just recently coined the term dumpster juice. Yeah, sorry. I grew up in the country, and I'm not a big fan of cities, but I love New Orleans. And if you ever go out there when it's really hot in August, first thing in the morning, you'll understand it's very stinky. But I do love it, and I watched my city flood. And so my second collection was Days of Dark Miracles. The cover of it is by my incredible husband, Benjamin Billingsley. It's a woodblock print of crows flying over the city of New Orleans. So for the last couple of years, I've read from these collections and thought I knew what reading poetry was all about. I was so wrong, because that was someone else's suffering. That was someone else's pain. And as much as I could try to speak for them, I did not address my own grief, my own pain. So Waxwings is my new book, also covered by my incredible husband, again, Ben Billingsley. We have a round of applause. And I would like to say these are not not self-published, like I could not tell the editor, you will fix this. They actually found them on Facebook and said, can we have it?
That's
and I was like,
that's
so can. All right, so this book is about my childhood and my adulthood. And I've had people tell me when they find out that my father was a Baptist preacher, or is a Baptist preacher, that I grew up in South Carolina under the rather, let's just say, racist, incredibly racist, shadow of the giant sombrero tower that is Pedro's tower. My first boyfriend was the putt-putt golf course manager there. They said you can't buy that kind of past. And I thought, you know, as a writer, you really can't buy that kind of past, but now it's apparently for sale. It costs $15. So before I start, I'm going to talk about, Levon mentioned how nature plays into my work, and nature does. And so I consider this poem a self-portrait, and this poem was the first poem I ever workshopped at UNCW, and it's called Scarecrow. Scarecrow crafter, burlap tailor, black eye smudger. When I'm done, crows mistake you for a man. Silent shoer, stock-still farmer, to them alone a tartan terror. I fisted through your flannel, spiced your straw with artemisia, puffed your chest with wilted rue, perfumed your thighs with summer sweet, another half attempt at love, to keep the flies from you, who do not care if you are flesh or straw. Stand still in June, they will devour you. If they don't, and you see the summer through, the sun, the wind, the rain make fast work of you, until your pie-pan hands cease to flutter, and even the crows begin to mutter that you can't be much. Winter comes. Now the squash begins to earn its name. Cold snaps beans, like tomatoes that turn from green to glass. My red for you is missing. How long before the snow and I take you down? This next poem I consider to be the first confessional poem I ever wrote, and I'm not confessing much, so don't get excited. But it's called Self-Portrait, Gay Son of a Preacher. Old enough for evening service, too young to stay awake. For a moment the boy sleeps against his mother's side, his left hand clutching the pale green hem of her blouse. He wakes suddenly, falling a startling sureness of his own destruction, his little soul trailing his body like a failed parachute. His father's voice opens in the waking world. It is the voice of Jesus, deep as a baptistry. The sermon is halfway over, but the boy hears enough. Naaman, once a great warrior, became a leper. Ghost white, his flesh a torn garment of wounds, and he remained that way until he obeyed God's prophet, washed 7 times in the river Jordan, and his flesh was made clean and new as a child's. The boy's fear slips away. He releases his mother. He rises, joins the altar call. His father's arms open before him, wafer and wine in his hands. The congregation sings, "Just as I am." But the boy, silent, mouth open, hears only his Savior, a voice in his chest saying, "Come, and I will make you whole." Okay, this next poem I wasn't sure if I was going to read in public, but I'm going to. No kids, right? Well, the next one's more important. Well, that's later, but there's one that eventually there should be no kids. Just checking. I want to be on it. Okay, all right. I was given an assignment when I was at UNCW by the late Jack Myers, and he said to write a portrait of yourself based on a photograph, and I wrote 3 for his class. This is not one of them. But I did find this photograph later and thought about what he said, and it's a photograph of a house that I lived in. And it's called, originally enough, Photograph, 1984. Swallow this house. Bedroom window paned like a roadside cross erected for a reckless boy. Wreath of camera flare, paper flower of real grief, with too bright a center. Edges finally fading in shoebox weather. You know what happened there. You know this is more than a snapshot. Flat as it seems, it will become on your red tongue, and it will swell and be those rooms, that room, with its pale boy sinking to his knees, again sinking into shadowed corners. Come, fold into black origami. Come, unhinge your jaw like the copperhead you saw becoming a blackbird in the woods. Mouth first, then your throat, your white ribs and pink gut. All that's left of you must muscle through the flapping wing, thin legs trembling, one skeletal foot curling inward. It's in you now. The sin, the bones, the room, him telling you it's all right, and every man does it when a girl leaves him empty-handed. Swallow this house, blackbird who became a snake. Swallow this house and keep yourself from remembering how to sing. I think this last poem is, well, not the last poem, but sorry. Ta-da! You almost got out. There are brownies and wine later if it gets too bad, and it's not going to get peppier. I'll just tell you. This next poem is actually, though I consider part of the confessional book of poems. Strangely enough, my mother and father, being Baptist preacher and wife, you'd think that they would have tossed me out once they found out that I was gay, but instead they bought me ice cream and told me they loved me and they respected me and everything was fine. But most of my friends that I knew did not have the same story, and a lot of my friends that I knew who were outsiders in any way did not have the same story. So I wrote this poem actually for a man that I'm very close to who went through a different experience when he was younger. And it's called Since They Put You Out. Since they put you out, no chair receives you, no bath invites you, no stovepot simmers you to supper, no mattress gives to cradle you, no down rises to fill the empty spaces your spine leaves behind, and those back-bending nightmares you've suffered since you got the shove. Since you got the boot, no door thuds protectively behind you, no hallway echoes without reminding you your feet fall too much alone. Since they kicked you to the curb, no memory of mama makes you warm, no papa's chestnut is worth the recollection of Sammy cracking your tooth in the 7th grade because you were too pretty, too soft, too much for him what you did for him behind the shed. This made the journey from hell to home not easier, but expected. Like a whore, you know love turns on a dime. And staying with the light theme, I promise it will get better. Towards the end there are poems about Ben, which makes everything feel at least easier, if not happy. I was going to say the collection's about longing and loss, but it's poetry. All right, so, okay. The next series of poems I'm going to read are from a group of poems called Elegy Written in November. And they're about David Garland, who was a lover of mine, who died. And it took a long time to write poems about him. It took a long time. So if you're a poet or a writer out there and you're struggling with writing about current grief, it may take a decade or so to get there. But anyway, so these next few short poems are about David, and I hope a lot of things. This is called The Backward Glance. On the way home from the store, I thought I saw you, white bird of